Hello everyone, welcome back to my B&B Today spoiler channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. The room was quiet except for the faint clink of a glass against the table. Steffy Forrester Finnegan stared down at the drink in her hand, trying to convince herself the anger inside her had finally burned out. It hadn't. If anything, it had gone colder. Finn had hurt her. Sheila had pushed everything to the breaking point. And now Steffy was left wondering whether trusting the people closest to her had been the biggest mistake of all. Across the room, Carter Walton looked almost as broken. His marriage to Daphne Rose had collapsed under the weight of devastating news. They had dreamed about building a family together, and when those dreams suddenly seemed impossible, Daphne had walked away. She'd even taken off her wedding ring and talked about returning to Paris. Carter had tried to be strong. He'd told Daphne their marriage was bigger than one diagnosis. He'd talked about adoption, surrogacy, every possibility he could think of. But Daphne had been too devastated to hear him. Now Carter sat with Steffy, both of them carrying the kind of heartbreak that made good decisions almost impossible. Steffy finally broke the silence. "Do you ever get tired of fighting for people who keep hurting you?" Carter looked at her carefully. "Every day." That answer caught her off guard. For a moment, neither of them spoke. There was no romantic fantasy in the room, only two wounded people trying to understand why the people they loved had made them feel so powerless. "Daphne left you," Steffy said. "She did, and you still want her back because I love her?" Steffy swallowed hard. That must be nice. Carter understood immediately what she meant. Finn, the betrayal, the endless complications surrounding Sheila. Steffy wasn't simply angry with Finn, she was exhausted from being forced to forgive the same people over and over again. Carter leaned forward. "You don't have to forgive anyone tonight. Maybe I don't want forgiveness. What do you want?" Her eyes hardened. "I want the threat gone." Carter knew exactly who she meant. Sheila Carter. The woman who had spent years creating chaos around Steffy's family, the woman Steffy believed would never truly change. Carter's expression shifted. "Steffy, whatever you're thinking, I'm not asking you to hurt anyone." He paused, but the look between them said more than words could. That was the dangerous part. Sometimes the worst decisions didn't begin with anger. They began with two people convincing themselves they were protecting someone they loved. As the night went on, the line between comfort and something more became dangerously blurred. Neither of them had planned what happened next. But when emotions took control, consequences stopped being theoretical. Chapter 2. A Mother's Instinct. Meanwhile, across Los Angeles, Logan Spencer was staring down a completely different problem. Dylan. Katie had already seen enough to know something wasn't right. Dylan's behavior around Will Spencer had become too complicated to dismiss as innocent flirting, and the more Katie thought about Dylan's so-called research, the more uncomfortable she became. There was something familiar about it. Too familiar. Katie had seen what happened when someone became obsessed with information, secrets, and vulnerabilities. Luna had taught the Spencer family a painful lesson once already. Katie wasn't prepared to ignore the warning signs a second time. She picked up her phone and stared at Will's name. Her son had made a terrible mess of his relationship with Electra Forrester. He claimed to love Electra, yet he'd crossed a line with Electra's best friend. Katie needed answers, and she was about to demand them. At Forrester Creations, Electra was reaching her own limit. She'd spent too long trying to stay calm. Now she wanted Dylan gone, but getting someone fired wasn't as simple as walking into an office and making a demand. Forrester Creations was already dealing with bad publicity. Another scandal could be disastrous. Electra knew that. Dylan knew it too. And that was exactly why the situation was becoming so dangerous, because Dylan wasn't acting like someone afraid of exposure. She was acting like someone who believed she still had the upper hand. Chapter 3. The confrontation. Will knew something was wrong the moment he saw his mother waiting for him. Katie wasn't yelling. That was worse. She stood quietly, arms crossed, watching him like someone who'd already figured out most of the truth and was simply waiting for him to confirm it. "Mom, sit down." Will hesitated. "Sit." He sat. Katie took a breath. I want you to answer one question honestly. What question? If you love Electra, why were you with Dylan? The silence was immediate. Will looked away, but Katie didn't let him escape. You don't get to blame Dylan for everything, Will. You made your own choices. I know. Do you? Will rubbed his hands together. It wasn't supposed to happen. Katie's expression hardened. That sentence doesn't explain anything. Will finally looked at her. I was angry, confused. Electra and I were fighting. Dylan was there. And you forgot you had a girlfriend. No. Then what happened? Will had no good answer. Katie leaned closer. You've been acting like you're the victim in all this. But Electra is the one who was betrayed. Will lowered his head. I know I hurt her, then start acting like you understand what you did. The conversation left Will shaken, but Katie wasn't finished. Why is Dylan so interested in you? I don't know. That's exactly what worries me. Katie had noticed how quickly Dylan had inserted herself into Will's life. First it looked like attraction, then friendship, then secrecy, then betrayal. Now Katie wondered if the whole thing had been building toward something else entirely, and if Dylan had deliberately targeted Will. The Spencer family might be walking into another nightmare. Chapter 4. Collision at the Bikini Bar. Suspicion turned more serious when Will walked into the Bikini Bar and froze. Dylan was there. For a second, neither of them moved, the memory of their secret encounter hanging between them. Dylan finally smiled. Didn't expect to see you. Neither did I. She stepped closer. You're avoiding me. I think that's probably for the best. Dylan's smile disappeared. You don't really mean that. Will glanced around. Dylan. Electra knows. That changed everything. Dylan's expression went unreadable. Does she know everything? What does that mean? Dylan shrugged. Nothing, but Will knew it wasn't nothing. Before he could push further, Electra appeared. Her eyes landed on Dylan, then on Will, and the tension in the room became unbearable. She walked straight toward them. Stay away from me. Dylan raised an eyebrow. I wasn't talking to you. You don't need to. Electra's voice shook with anger. You betrayed me once. I won't let you do it again. Are you threatening me? No. Electra stepped closer. I'm warning you. Dylan stayed calm. You can't fire me just because you're angry. Electra's jaw tightened. Maybe not. She turned to Will, but I can make sure everyone knows exactly what happened. Will looked devastated. He knew he deserved the anger. But Dylan's reaction was different. She wasn't scared. She looked almost amused. That was the moment Electra realized something. Dylan wasn't simply fighting for Will. She was protecting something else. Something bigger. Something she hadn't revealed yet. Chapter 5. A second chance and a new secret hacker's town. Carter was facing his own reckoning. Daphne had reached out. She wanted to talk, and for the first time since leaving him, she sounded calm. Carter couldn't believe it. He'd spent days preparing himself to lose her. Now she was asking him to meet. He should have felt relieved. Instead, he thought of Steffy, their emotional night, the conversation about Sheila, the decision he'd almost made, and the terrifying possibility that Daphne might come back into his life just as he'd crossed a line he could never take back. When Carter arrived, Daphne looked at him with tears in her eyes. I've been thinking. He said nothing. I was wrong to believe our marriage had no future. Carter's heart nearly broke. He wanted to tell her everything, but fear stopped him. Daphne reached for his hand. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you either, for the first time. Hope returned, but it came with a price because Carter now carried a secret. And secrets never stay buried in Los Angeles for long. They talked for what felt like hours about the future. About the children they'd wanted, about the diagnosis that had shattered their plans, and finally about staying together. We can find another way, Carter told her. Daphne wiped away a tear. I want to believe that. You don't have to have all the answers today. Neither do you, Carter smiled. For the first time in days, he felt like his marriage might survive, but the relief came tangled with guilt. He couldn't stop thinking about Steffy. Daphne noticed his silence. What's wrong? Nothing, Carter. I've just been through a lot. Daphne believed him. That only made the secret harder to carry. Chapter 6. Steffy's choice. Fi was still struggling with Finn. Part of her wanted to forgive him. Another part was terrified that forgiveness would only open the door to another betrayal when Finn approached her. She didn't run, but she didn't welcome him either. I don't know if I can do this anymore, she admitted. I love you. I know. Then let me prove it. Steffy shook her head. Love isn't always enough. Finn had no answer. Her pain wasn't disappearing, and behind it sat another fear, Sheila. Steffy believed Sheila would always find her way back into their lives. That was why Carter's words from the night before kept echoing in her mind. The possibility of stopping Sheila for good had been raised. Now Steffy had to decide whether she wanted Carter's help, or whether accepting it would make her just as dangerous as the people she hated. Chapter 7. What Katie found. Katie kept digging into Dylan, asking the questions no one else wanted to ask. Why was Dylan so interested in Will? Why had she gotten close to Electra before turning on her? Why was she quietly researching private information? And why did it all remind Katie so much of past scandals involving people who'd become dangerously obsessed with the Spencer family? She finally confronted Dylan directly. I know you're hiding something, Dylan laughed. Everyone thinks I'm hiding something because you are. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. Dylan stepped closer. Then tell me what you think you know. Katie studied her. I think Will is being used. Dylan's expression flickered just for a second. But Katie saw it. You care about him. Maybe I do. No. Katie shook her head. That's not the whole story. Dylan said nothing. You didn't become Electra's friend by accident. Katie continued. You didn't get close to Will by accident either. You're making assumptions. I'm asking questions. Katie turned to leave. And eventually, someone will answer them. Chapter 8. The mask slips rattled. Dylan called Will and asked to meet. Alone, she finally let part of the act fall away. You think I'm the problem, she said, aren't you? You don't know what I've been through. Then tell me. Dylan hesitated. There was real pain in her eyes, but Will still couldn't tell if it was genuine or another manipulation. You think Electra is innocent, she whispered. She didn't betray me. Her face hardened. You have no idea what she's done? What are you talking about? Dylan stepped closer. I know things about the Forresters that you don't. Will froze. What things? That's the question, isn't it? Before she could say more, Electra arrived. She'd followed him, and this time she wasn't crying. She was furious. That's enough. Dylan turned. You really think you can control this situation? No. Electra said, steady now. But I know one thing. What? I know you're scared. Dylan's smile vanished. Electra had finally found the weakness and somewhere else in the city. Carter was about to discover that his own secret had already started moving toward the light. Chapter 9. The secret comes out. Carter came home expecting Daphne. Instead, he found Steffy looking nervous. We need to talk. Carter knew immediately this wasn't about romance. What happened? I've been thinking about what you said. She took a breath. About Sheila. You shouldn't do anything. I know. Then why are you here? Because I need to know if you were serious. The conversation suddenly felt far more dangerous than the night before. I was angry, Carter admitted. So was I. That doesn't make it right. No. Steffy said, looking down. But it doesn't make the fear disappear either. Carter understood. Sheila wasn't just another enemy. She represented years of trauma, threats, and uncertainty. But Carter refused to become a man who solved problems through revenge. If I help you, he said, it has to be the right way. That's what I needed to hear. Neither of them noticed Daphne standing nearby. She hadn't heard every word. She didn't need to. The secrecy was enough. Later, Carter found her alone. What did you hear? Enough. His heart dropped. Daphne, you came back to me. Yes, you told me you wanted our marriage. I do. Then why were you with Steffy? Carter couldn't lie anymore. He admitted they'd shared a dangerous emotional moment while both were devastated. Daphne closed her eyes, the pain returning instantly. You didn't tell me. I was afraid. You were afraid of losing me. Yes, and you still lied. Carter had no defense. Daphne walked away, the marriage they'd just agreed to save suddenly hanging by a thread again. Chapter 10 Everything College. While Carter's secret exploded, another one was catching up fast. Katie received information that confirmed her worst suspicion. Dylan's interest in Will had never been as simple as attraction. She'd been collecting information, tracking relationships, learning weaknesses, and Will had become one of her most important targets. Katie confronted him one last time. "You need to stay away from her." "What did you find?" "Enough to know this isn't just about Electra." Will paled. "Then what is it about?" "I don't know yet." At that moment, his phone rang. "Dylan." "Will, you need to come see me." "Why?" "Because I know who started all of this." Will froze. "What do you mean?" "You'll understand when you get here." The call ended. Katie grabbed his arm. "Don't go. If she's telling the truth, I need to know." Katie didn't like it, but she knew her son was already into deep. At Forrester Creations, Electra made one final approach. "I know you're hiding something." Dylan stared her down. "You always think you're the hero. I just refuse to let you destroy everyone around you." Dylan's expression shifted. "You should ask your boyfriend what he really wants." "Will made a mistake." "Maybe." Dylan leaned closer. "But mistakes don't happen without reasons." Electra suddenly understood. Dylan wasn't trying to win Will anymore. She was trying to break him away from everyone he trusted. And that meant Electra wasn't the only target. The entire Spencer and Forrester circle might be in danger. Chapter 11 What comes after. At the same time, Steffy stood outside Finn's home. She'd spent days wondering whether she could forgive him. Now she finally had her answer. "I don't know if forgiveness means forgetting," she told him. "It doesn't, but I still love you." Finn's eyes filled with relief. Steffy wasn't ready to pretend everything was fixed, but she wasn't walking away either. For the moment, he had a chance. Carter wasn't so lucky. Daphne had left him again, and this time he knew exactly why. His attempt to comfort Steffy had created a secret that nearly destroyed the marriage he'd fought so hard to save. As the week moved toward its final reckoning, every storyline began to collide. Will was cornered by Katie's questions. Dylan was being exposed by Electra's determination. Carter was trapped between Steffy and Daphne, and Steffy was forced to decide whether her fear of Sheila would control her future. The biggest danger was never that one person would make a single terrible choice. It was that one secret would expose another, because in Los Angeles, betrayal rarely ends with the person who committed it. It spreads. Daphne had wanted to save her marriage. Katie had wanted to protect her son. Electra had wanted to protect her friendship and her heart. Steffy had wanted to protect her family. And Carter had simply wanted to protect the woman he loved. But sometimes trying to protect someone is exactly what puts everything at risk.